Hey warriors, welcome to Empowerment and Illness. I'm Gwen, your host. I want to start this episode with something we don't talk about enough, and honestly we should. Being sick costs money, real money, not just every once in a while, but every single month. Medications, copays, deductibles, supplements, appointments, transportation. It does not stop. And a lot of us are carrying that quietly, trying to make it work without saying how heavy it actually is. And the part that makes it harder is this. You are not just spending more. For many of us, we are also earning less. Our bodies do not always allow us to work the way we used to. We adjust our schedules, step back in our careers, or push through on days when we probably should not. So now we are managing higher costs with less flexibility, and that pressure builds over time. Now, add another layer. The system itself is shifting. Coverage changes, provider networks change, policy change, and suddenly the little bit of stability you worked hard to build starts to feel uncertain. And that uncertainty hits different when your health depends on consistency. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the real cost of living with chronic illness. Not just the bills, but the time, the energy, and the decisions you are making every single day. And we are also going to talk about how you move through all of this with more clarity, more preparation, and a stronger sense of control without carrying guilt that was never yours to begin with. So let's get into it. Nobody warned you about the price tag, and I don't mean that in a dramatic way. I mean that in a very real, very practical way. When you first get a diagnosis, the conversation is always about your body. They talk about your symptoms. They talk about treatment options. They talk about follow-ups, medications, next step. But nobody sits you down and say, hey, your life is about to get more expensive in ways you didn't plan for. And that's the part that hits you later. Not all at once, but little by little. At first it may look small, a copay here, a prescription there, maybe a follow-up appointment that you didn't expect. And you think, okay, I can handle this, it's fine. But then it keeps going. Now you're paying for medication every month. Some of them are covered, some of them are not. Some of them are partially covered, which somehow feels worse because you're still paying a large amount out of pocket and you're trying to understand why. Then comes the supplements. The ones your doctor suggests are the ones you discover because your body needs more support than prescriptions alone are giving you. And those are rarely covered. So now you're adding that on top. Then you have specialists. And specialist visits don't come cheap. Those copays start stacking up quickly. And it always seems like they come at the same time. One appointment leads to another. One referral turns into 3. And before the month is over, you're looking at your account trying to figure out where all your money just went. And then we have deductibles. Let's talk about that for a second, because this is where a lot of warriors get frustrated. You're paying for insurance every single month. That money is coming out whether you feel good or bad. And then when you actually need to use it, you find out you have to pay thousands before your coverage really kicks in. So now you're sitting there thinking, what exactly am I paying for? And this is the moment where people start blaming themselves. They start thinking, maybe I should budget better. Maybe I should be doing something differently. Maybe I'm not managing this the way I'm supposed to. But I need you to hear this clearly. This is not a budgeting issue. This is not because you're irresponsible. This is not because you didn't plan well enough. This is what happens when you're living in a body that requires more care than the system was designed to support. Now add another layer on top of that. A lot of warriors are not working at full capacity. And that's not because they don't want to. It's because their body will not allow it consistently. Some of you are trying to work full time and your body is pushing back every single day. Some of you had to step back into part-time work just to survive physically. Some of you have left careers you loved because the demand was more than your body could handle. And some of you are in a space where working consistently is not possible at all right now. So now we have a situation where you are earning less while your expenses are going up. And that gap right there, that space between what you're bringing in and what you're putting out, that's where the pressure lies. That's where the stress shows up. That's where the quiet panic happens when a bill comes in that you weren't expecting. That's where the mental math starts. Can I pay this now? Do I need to wait? What can I move around? And it's exhausting, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Because you're not just managing your health, you're managing the cost of staying functional. You're not failing because this feels heavy, doing something wrong because this feels overwhelming. You're navigating something that is structurally difficult. And once you see that clearly, it changes how you carry it. Because instead of turning that pressure inward and thinking something is wrong with you, you start to recognize what you're actually up against. And that's awareness. That shift right there is where we start building from. Now that we've talked about the cost, let's talk about something that hits even harder than the numbers. What happens when the little bit of stability you've built starts to shift? Because a lot of warriors right now, especially in Texas, this isn't just about high costs anymore. It's about access changing in real time. And if you've heard the news about Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas stepping away from Medicaid and marketplace plans, you already know this doesn't feel like a small change. This feels like the ground moving under your feet. Because when you're living with a chronic illness, stability is not a luxury, it's everything. It takes time to build a care team. It takes time to find doctors who actually listen to you, who understand your history, who don't dismiss you after 5 minutes. It takes time to get on the right medication, to find something that your body tolerates, something that actually works. And once you get there, you hold on to that. Not because everything is perfect, but because it's working enough for you to function. Now, imagine being told that you might have to change all of that. You might have to find a new doctor. You might have to learn a new system. You might have to fight to stay on medication that your body is finally responding to. That's not just frustrating. That's destabilizing. Because this is not like switching a phone plan or trying a new grocery store. This is your body. This is your access to care. This is your ability to maintain any level of consistency in your health. And here's the part that people outside of this experience don't always understand. When your care gets interrupted, your body feels it. When medication change, your body feels it. When appointments get delayed or pushed back, your body feels it. And for many warriors, that disruption is enough to trigger a flare. So now you're not just dealing with paperwork and phone calls and figuring out coverage. Now you're dealing with physical consequences on top of it. And that's where the overwhelm starts to stack. Because you're thinking, how do I prepare for something I don't fully understand yet? What happens if I lose access to my doctor? What happens if my medication isn't covered anymore? And those questions don't have quick answers. So what do you do in that space? We don't panic, but we also don't ignore it. We move with intention. This is the moment where awareness becomes preparation. You start asking questions now, not later. You start looking at your plan, your providers, your medications, your options. You don't wait until the last minute when everything feels urgent. Because when you move early, you give yourself more space to adjust, more space to think clearly, more space to advocate for yourself without being in crisis mode. And I want to be very clear about something here. This is not about fear. This is about positioning yourself so that when things shift, you're not starting from zero. You already have information. You already have a plan. You already have a next step. And that right there, that preparation, is what helps you stay steady when everything around you feels like it's changing. Now let's talk about the part that doesn't show up on a bill. Because yes, the financial cost is real. We just talked about that. And yes, access and coverage matter. We talked about that too. But there's another layer to this that a lot of people don't see. And honestly, sometimes we don't even stop long enough to recognize it ourselves. And that's the cost of your time. Think about how much time you spend just trying to maintain your care. Time on hold with insurance, time calling doctors' offices, time scheduling and rescheduling appointments, time waiting in waiting rooms, time trying to figure out what is covered and what is not. That's time you're not resting. That's time you're not recovering. That's time you're not just living your life. And for someone with a chronic illness, time isn't neutral. Time is energy. So every hour you spend navigating the system, you are pulling from a limited reserve. And then we have the energy cost. Because it's not just about how long something takes. It's about what it takes out of you. Calling insurance isn't a simple task. It's frustrating. It requires focus. It requires patience. It requires you to explain your situation over and over again to people who don't know your history. Fighting a denial isn't just paperwork. It's emotional labor. You're advocating for yourself. You're trying to be heard. You're trying to get access to something your body needs. And that takes something out of you. Even when you win, you're still tired. Now let's layer on the lifestyle cost. The things that you've adjusted that nobody talks about. Buying clothes that don't irritate your skin or your joints. Ordering food on the days you cannot stand long enough to cook. Paying for tools that make your day easier, safer, or just tolerable. Heating pads, compression gear, adaptive tools, organizers, things that help you function. None of that is extra. None of that is you being high maintenance. That's you meeting your body where it is. And it adds up. And then there is a cost that is even harder to talk about. The social cost. The invitations you decline because you already know what the recovery is going to feel like. The trips you don't take because they require energy and money that you don't have in surplus. The moments where you are watching other people move forward in ways that feel out of reach for you right now. Advancing in their careers, traveling, building financial stability. And you're sitting there doing the math on your next refill. That gap creates a kind of grief that is very real. That's not you being negative. That's not you complaining. That's you responding to a life that requires more from you than it does from most people. And when you carry all of this, the financial cost, the time cost, the energy cost, the lifestyle adjustment, the social limitations, it's easy to start thinking that you're falling behind. But you're not. You're operating on a completely different set of conditions. And once you start naming these costs for what they are, something shifts. Because you stop minimizing what you're carrying. You stop brushing it off like it's nothing. And you start recognizing this is work. This is effort. This is resilience in real time. And that awareness matters. Because it changes how you move into the next step, which is learning how to navigate a system that is going to tell you no. Now let's talk about something every warrior has experienced at some point. Hearing the word no. No, this isn't covered. No, you need prior authorization. No, you have to try something else first. And sometimes it comes so casually, like it's just part of the process, like it's no big deal. But for you, it's a very big deal. Because that no is not just a word. It's attached to your body. It's attached to your ability to function. It's attached to whether or not you can move through your day with any level of stability. And when you hear it enough time, something starts to happen. You start to get tired, not physically, but mentally. You start thinking, I don't have the energy to fight this again. You start thinking, maybe I'll just wait. You start thinking, maybe I can manage without it for now. And that right there is where the system quietly wins. Because it's not built for you to feel supported. It's built to filter. It's built to see who will push back and who will stop. And I need you to hear this part very clearly. That first no is not always the final answer. It is the first answer, and there is a difference. Because behind that first answer, there are processes that most people are not told about unless they ask. Appeals. Peer-to-peer reviews where your doctor speaks directly to the insurance company. Letters of medical necessity that explain exactly why your treatment matters. Documentation that shows your history and what you have already tried. These are not quick. They are not easy. And yes, they take energy, but they exist and they change outcomes. Now let's talk about something practical. When you get a denial, instead of stopping at the frustration, shift the question. Not why did they say no, but what is the next step after this no? Is there an appeal process? Is there a different form that needs to be submitted? Is there a call your provider can make? You're not starting over. You're moving to the next step. And this is also another layer of support that doesn't get talked about enough. Patient assistance programs, prescription saving programs, community health resources. These aren't always handed to you. You often have to go looking for them or ask directly, but they are there and they can make a real difference. Now I want to pause for a second because I'm not going to pretend that this is easy. Advocating when you're already tired is hard. Following up when your body's already struggling is hard. Pushing back when you feel dismissed is hard. All of that is real. But here's the shift I want you to take with you. You're not asking for something extra. You're asking for what your body needs. That's not unreasonable. That's not too much. That's not being difficult. That's you taking care of yourself in a system that requires you to be active in your own care. And even if you don't fight every battle, even if you pick and choose where your energy goes, knowing that you have options changes how you move. Because now, when you hear no, you don't automatically shut down. You pause, you take a breath, and you ask, what comes next? After everything we've talked about, the costs, the changes, the denials, the energy it takes just to stay afloat, the question becomes, how do you live inside of this without feeling like you are constantly trying to catch up? Because that's what it feels like. Like you're always one step behind, one bill behind, one appointment behind, one decision away from things getting heavier. And when you live in that space long enough, it starts to wear on you in a way that is hard to explain. So this is where we shift, not into fixing everything, not into trying to solve the entire system, because you cannot control all of that. We shift into what is actually in your control. And the first thing is this: clarity. Not perfect clarity, not having all the answers, but having a clear picture of what your illness is costing you. Because when everything feels overwhelming, it is often because it's all sitting in your head all at the same time. The appointments, the bills, the medication, the I think I paid that already moment. It's all floating around with no structure. And that creates anxiety. So when you start writing it down, even if it's messy, even if it's not organized yet, something changes. You can see it, you can track it, you can separate what is fixed from what changes month to month. And that alone gives you a level of control that you did not have before. Now let's talk about something that is just as important. Permission. Permission to treat your medical expenses like what they are. Not extra, not inconveniences, not something you should feel guilty about, but a necessary part of your life right now. Because one of the quietest struggles that a lot of warriors carry is guilt. Guilt for spending money on themselves. Guilt for needing more support. Guilt for not being able to contribute in the way they want to. And that guilt can make you hesitant when it comes to taking care of yourself. You delay things. You question things. You try to push through instead of investing in what you actually need. And that ends up costing you more in the long run. So part of building stability is shifting how you see those decisions. You're not wasting money. You're supporting your body. You're not being expensive. You're responding to what your life requires right now. And that matters. Now the next piece is this: small structure. Not a perfect system. Not something complicated that you won't keep up with. Something simple: tracking your medical expenses. Keeping your documents in one place. Knowing what you're paying for and why. That's not about control in a rigid way. That's about reducing the mental load. Because the less you have to keep in your head, the more space you have for everything else. And over time, those small actions build something important. Not perfection, not complete stability, but resilience. The kind that says, even if things shift, I'm not starting from zero. You have information. You have awareness. You have a way to respond instead of react. And that doesn't move the weight completely, but it changes how you carry it. Because now you are not just surviving inside of it, you're navigating it with intention. And that right there, that shift from reacting to responding, is where your power lives. Set aside some quiet time this week with your journal. These prompts are meant to help you notice your direction, not judge your pace. When you think about the financial cost of your illness, what's the first emotion that comes up? Where do you feel that emotion in your body? Don't analyze it, just notice it. Are there costs you've been absorbing silently? Time, energy, social connection that you've never given yourself credit for carrying? Write them down, all of them. Let the list be as long as it needs to be. What's one financial boundary you need to set, or one resource you've been too proud or too exhausted to look into? What would it feel like to take that step this week? For our listeners' action plan, this week, we're asking you to take 3 practical steps toward financial clarity and advocacy. Step 1, do a quick coverage check. Look at your insurance coverage plan and compare it to your current medication and providers. Write down everything that is not covered or may be changing so you know where to focus. Step 2, choose one issue and take one action. Pick the most urgent concern and take one clear step this week, such as calling your insurance, messaging your provider, or asking about alternatives. Step 3, track your real cost. Start writing down every out-of-pocket expense related to your care for the next 30 days. This gives you clarity and it helps you make more informed decisions moving forward. And now, a word from our sponsors. Warriors, we know the paperwork alone can feel like a full-time job. That's where the paper trail comes in. It's our medical binder system designed specifically for people with chronic illness. It keeps your records organized, your insurance history documented, and your advocacy tools ready when you need the most. Because when you're fighting a denial or changing insurers mid-year, the last thing you need is to be searching for a lab result from 2021. And if you've recently been diagnosed or you're helping someone navigate a new lupus diagnosis, the Lupus Roadmap is the resource we wished existed from day one. It walks you through what to expect, what to ask, and how to build a care team that actually listens. Find it at empowermentandillness.com. Already managing your condition but struggling to predict your bad days? My Flarecast is our flare-up tracking tool that helps you identify your patterns before your body forces you to pay attention. And when you need to communicate your needs clearly to your medical team, My Voice Ally helps you build an advocacy letter and visit summaries that get you heard. Be prepared. Don't panic. And now, back to the show. Before we leave, I would like to close with a special portion of the show I call Healing Heartbeats. This is where we allow ourselves to wallow in sorrow. Give yourself 3 minutes to laugh, cry, scream, cuss, or just sit in silence. Whatever you need to do to feel it, do it. Let the depression in for only 3 minutes. Once you reach 3 minutes, compartmentalize it and get back to living. This is a rinse and repeat behavior. You cannot let depression take over, because when it does, it will not let go. When we hear about the passing of someone, they have the day they were born and the day they pass away. There is a dash in the middle. It's not a long line, but a short dash. That dash represents your life. Go live in spite of having a chronic illness. Don't let your condition stop you. We started today by naming something that too many of us carry in silence: the cost of affording yourself when your body needs more than the average person's. Chronic illness is expensive in ways that go far beyond the bills. It costs you time, energy, options, and sometimes a version of the future we imagine. But it does not cost us our identity. You are still you. What is happening with coverage changes and access is a reminder that the system can shift at any time. And when it does, it impacts warriors first. That is why awareness matters. That is why preparation matters. That is why your voice matters. Not just for you, but the next person who is trying to figure this out and doesn't even know where to start. Every time you ask a question, every time you advocate, every time you choose to understand your situation instead of shrinking from it, you're creating space for yourself and for someone else. If this episode stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is quietly carrying the same weight and hasn't said it out loud yet. And if you need support, if you need tools, if you need a place to start organizing everything we talked about today, go to empowermentandillness.com. You're not meant to figure all of this out alone. Remember, you have the strength, the heart, and the support to continue your journey. Be safe.